All right, guys, thanks a lot. We'll talk more about that with Marcia Cavanaugh, the producer of that documentary, coming up a little bit later on. But we're going to talk now to Mike Moncla, who is the president of Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. Energy, gas prices on everyone's mind. Mike, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Sure, glad to be here.
Tell us about the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. Who are your members and what's the mission?
Our members are the producers of Louisiana, the ones that are going out there and drilling and producing wells every day. You know, most of the members you've never heard of. You know, my members are pretty much independent. I have a few that are majors that are members, but for the most part, my members are independent oil and gas companies that you've never heard of.
And what is the mission of the association?
We lobby at the Capitol for pro oil and gas, bills and legislation.
Very good, Mike. Here in Louisiana, we get a double whammy when situations develop like what we're seeing right now. Not only do a lot of people lose jobs and income, which is a ripple effect and it affects everyone in the state's economy, but we also have to pay these high energy prices too. So we get a double shot of it. Explain, how did we get here? We were doing so good. Gas was cheap. We were basically energy independent, and now all of a sudden we're going to other countries looking for them. We don't have supply. The prices, although it's dropping a little bit down, but it's still way above what it was. How did we get in this situation of not having enough gas?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that question. You know, I mean, we had 7 years of horrific downturn for the oil and gas industry from 2015 until about a year and a half ago. You know, I mean, we had, $40 oil that had, yielded probably over 1,000 bankruptcies over the last 7 years. So it's not been a good run for oil and gas from 2015 till about 2021, really. So, right now, we've got an administration that came in that replaced, all that Trump was doing. And this administration from day one has been against, fossil fuels. He said he was going to end fossil fuels before he was even elected. And from day one, he canceled the Keystone Pipeline. He's, put ESG requirements at banks for loans for any oil and gas loans they may want to look at. He's canceled the Gulf lease. I've got one member that they paid millions of dollars for one of the leases that was canceled. And the federal government's holding that money in protest right now until we get this thing settled with the courts. So it's been tough. It has not been easy for oil and gas.
Well, the official statements that come out of the White House and the Energy Department spokesman say they've got everything they need. They've got lands they can go. The permits are there. How can they say that when you're telling us they're canceling Gulf leases? Something's not adding up there.
Well, just because there's leases doesn't mean there's oil there. That's the thing about, the general public doesn't understand about oil and gas. I mean, you probably don't have oil and gas under your house. Oil companies invest, they go buy acreage, and then they have to go explore that acreage to see if there's oil and gas to extract. And a lot of times there's not. So, but you got to continue pushing forward and putting leases and letting oil companies explore. The oil and gas that's coming out of the Gulf right now, that's from leases that were purchased, 5-10 years ago. That's not for something that was purchased last month and they went and drilled and they've got a well. It's not how it works. It takes years. So it's a long-term deal, not anything that's short-term.
And we keep hearing the blame on Putin. The invasion of Ukraine. What impact does that actually have, if any, on our oil and gas situation here in Louisiana?
Well, I mean, right now, I think oil this morning was like $103. So if it's 103, it was 90 before Russia ever invaded Ukraine. So the day before the election, it was $37. So from the time Biden took office, it went from 37 to 90. And then the Ukraine-Russian conflict started, and it went up to as high as 121, 125, but now it's 103. So I mean, it was already up from 37 to 90 before Russia ever invaded.
And as far as platform removals go out in the Gulf, are they being replaced, or are we losing production facilities out there?
A lot of them are being, P&A'd and decommissioned. But there are some that they've tried to have that reef program for offshore fishing, and I'm not exactly sure how many of those have taken place, but a lot of them are being decommissioned as we speak.
And, there was I guess you could call it a oil and gas wish list, 10 things that were presented. And I guess there is an association of the associations, maybe an umbrella organization, which the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association may be part of. Did you guys contribute anything? They presented 10 different things that the oil industry needed and requested to be able to bring prices down. Did your organization submit anything there, or do you agree with what that request was?
I'm not exactly sure which one you're talking about, but I mean, we have teamed with, the API, for instance. We've teamed with several of the national lobbyist groups. I'm not exactly sure which one you're talking about there.
Yeah, well, this was it was designated as the 10 things that the oil industry requests that the government could do to change the situation and bring the prices down and get the oil industry back up and running again. And I don't know what their response to it was. Mike, we're going to take a break here, and we come back. I want to continue the conversation to talk about refineries. What's the future of oil refineries? And also I got some questions and some comments from some of the listeners. We invite those on our Oakland Heart Jewelers Talk and Text line, which is 504-260-1870. We're talking the state of the oil and gas situation in Louisiana. Are you affected by it, and what is your opinion on what we can do to make it better? We'll be back right after this. And I'm Don Dubuc filling in for Tommy Tucker this week. We're talking with Mike Moncla, the president of Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. Mike, I got some listener comments and questions we'll address, but before that, refineries, a topic. We don't have enough refineries, and that is causing a problem in providing the amount of gasoline that we need. And oil. What is the situation with refineries? We lost one here in Louisiana. They haven't built them, I think, in a couple of decades. There haven't been any new refineries built. Is there some disincentive that is being provided by the government to prevent refineries from being built and going into operation?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's been a refinery built in over, I read one article that said 50 years, but I think it was more like 30. But, I mean, there hasn't been a refinery built in that long. I mean, the environmental groups continue to fight fossil fuels. So, they've been able to halt that progress.
Yeah, well, I mean, if there's no incentive and, it looks like the end is coming for fossil fuels, it wouldn't make sense to invest in creating refineries. I got this text in. It's pretty interesting. It says, I said before on this radio station, I'm getting a lot of texts jumping around. Bear with me here. I said before on this radio station, they said it was a conspiracy, but this is why big oil secretly supports Democrats in office. They pump millions and millions of dollars into that campaign. It drives prices up, and they make money. Are there records of big oil and maybe you guys supporting Democrats, campaign contributions secretly in order so they can get the price of oil up and you make money? That's not real world stuff. I mean, as far as I know, not my members. But you think about the Biden administration. I mean, they're trying to push green energy. They're trying to push electric. They're trying to, show that renewable energy is the way to go. And the only way to do that is to have high gasoline prices. So, I mean, he's not doing much to help gasoline prices with his policies. And he's making it real attractive to go renewables. I have this one that says there's no moratorium on private properties which supply the majority of oil and gas in this country. Why aren't they drilling? Is that true that most of the oil is produced on private properties?
Yes, absolutely. And they are. I mean, if you look at a year and a half ago, there was 250 rigs drilling in the United States. We're up to over 700. We're at 750. So the oil and gas companies, the service side, has put 500 drilling rigs back to work. And on the operator side, they're continuing to buy up leases and put rigs to work as well.
And we have this one in, says, Uncle Joe Biden has gone to Saudi Arabia to beg them for oil. He does not want to drill in places like Anwar, Alaska, a place that could have more oil than Texas and Oklahoma put together. Between his war on energy and open borders, Biden has taken a wrecking ball to this great country. He needs to be impeached now. Is your association looking for this trip, I think it's today, to Saudi Arabia? What are you anticipating will come from that?
Well, again, this guy ran on wanting to end fossil fuels. Their whole country is fossil fuel. I mean, their whole social program depends on fossil fuel. So I don't know how much a country like that will want to listen to someone that wants to bury them.
True. Mike, and we have this one that says we have 2 refineries closed here in Alliance and Convent. There's no reason why they shouldn't be open and making gasoline.
Well, I mean, look, when regulations come in that, for emission stuff and different kind of EPA regulations that are going to cost millions, maybe billions of dollars to adjust your refineries, these oil companies have to make decisions, on their budgets on what to invest in and what not to. So, I mean, I know a company like Exxon put, probably $1 billion into adding to their refineries in the Baton Rouge area. Other companies have had to close some of them down. I can't really answer that question. Like I said, my members are the producers, not necessarily the refiners, but that's my take on it.
And I don't know if you can answer this one, but someone wanted me to ask you why diesel costs more than gas. Several years, diesel was considerably cheaper than gasoline.
Again, I'm not an expert in refinery. I think that it's diesel costs more to refine, would be my guess.
And I guess maybe it's a supply and demand, too. There's not as much of it in demand. As far as what you, again, need to turn things around, what can the government do? And really, I guess the representatives of this state, the ones that represent us in Washington, what can listeners, the residents, tell their elected officials to help get the Louisiana oil and gas industry back up on its feet and running and profitable and expanding and creating more jobs and keeping the people that are working employed?
Well, in North Louisiana, we've got the Haynesville Shale. So it's one of a prolific shale play, one of the best in the United States for natural gas. We're up to almost 50 rigs up there. So that's a great area for us. Our inland waters market, which is in South Louisiana, has been decimated by coastal erosion lawsuits. Most of the companies have gone bankrupt. A lot of the properties have been for sale. There's very little buyers out there because no one wants to be sued for filing a permit to dredge a canal. Then you got the offshore market. The offshore market, we need leases to continue. We do not have a shale play in South Louisiana to compete with the Permian basins and the Eagle Fords. So, a lot of the investment money from New York goes into those plays where they want that horizontal frac. That's what they want. That's what everyone is attracted to right now on the investment side. So the only place we have that in Louisiana is in the north side, nothing on the south.
Someone wants to know, what is summer blend? Again, this may be a refinery question that maybe you can't answer.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure of that.
Yeah. I had another question, too, that had come in with regard to, I guess this is, again, a refinery question. It seems like Shell would have kept the Convent refinery running, continue to make money in order to reinvest in projects. Any comments or thoughts on that?
I would say that Shell has a lot of smart people, and they probably were losing money, which is why they closed it. If they were making money, I don't imagine they would have closed it.
Yeah, another one says Shell Oil sees the writing on the wall. It's not regulations. Renewables is the future, and even big oil knows it. What do you foresee, and what is the talk within the association about this windmill energy that's coming around? Will there be a separate association that is created for wind energy, or will there be some adopting this and maybe merging with the oil and gas association or the industry?
We had a member that was trying to do a wind farm in the Gulf in Cameron Parish, 3 miles out, so it's state waters, and it was 2 steps forward, 3 steps back for several months, and they finally just threw their hands down. They couldn't go anymore dealing with the red tape. So I think that there's going to be some wind stuff coming. We're all for it. It is going to take all kinds of energy for the world to continue. If you look at the EIA, the Energy Information Agency, whatever, they're out of Paris. So this is a very liberal group out of Paris. They predict that oil and gas is going to go from 54% of the current market pie in the market to 45% in 20 years. But what you don't see is, even though we're losing 9% to renewables and other kinds of energies, the population of the world goes from 7.5 billion people to 10 billion people. So the 45% of energy supplied by fossil fuels will actually increase for the next, what is demand? The demand will actually increase in the number of fossil fuels that we need.
I get it. Yeah, it's a percentage, based on percentage.
Correct. But the population goes up.
Yeah, so it's going to actually cause an increase, even though the percentage is going to be on a decline. I got a question here saying, what happened to the shale drilling in St. Tammany?
Well, St. Tammany Parish didn't want it, so they fought tooth and nail against Hellas Oil Company, and so Hellas decided to just drill a straight hole, and they didn't really find what they wanted, so they just stopped the project.
So that was they wanted to do fracking at first, correct?
They wanted to drill a horizontal well, which requires fracking.
Uh-huh.
But fracking has been done for 70 years. I mean, every well is fracked. It's just when you frack an area that goes lateral as opposed to a frack that goes vertical, it's just a longer frack and takes more water. But it's no different than fracking a well at, 15,000 feet at a zone that's a 100-foot zone. You still frack it. I mean, it's very difficult for listeners to understand that aren't in the oil and gas industry. But fracking has been going on for 70 years, 100 years.
But basically, they gave up because there was nothing there, or not enough to make it profitable, correct?
Well, they gave up on the opportunity to drill horizontal, and if they'd have gone horizontal, it's very possible that they could have found a zone that they may have missed just going vertical. So they that one's on St. Tammany.
Right. Well, that could come up again, and maybe they have a changed attitude by now. Mike, it's been interesting talking to you. Thank you so much for taking some time and representing the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association, and we thank you for coming on with us.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
You too, Mike. All right, when we come back after this break, Marcia Cavanaugh is going to join us. She is the Director of Local Initiatives for WYES, and she produced a documentary that will be airing tonight on primetime on WYES exploring the creation of the World War II Museum. She'll be back to talk with us about it right after this time out. You're listening to WWL 870 AM. I'm Don Dubuc, in for a vacationing Tommy Tucker. We'll be right back.